I'm Andres Monty, founder of Reds. I've been working in the Cosmos space for about 3 or 4 years now. Was It's the other cloud security, and we started Reds and Scanners to build a security infra and security tooling for the Cosmos space. So I have a question for all of you, which is who here was a Terra user? Okay. So half of the audience. And who here was a Mirror Finance user? So I was as well. And yeah, the reality is that Mirror was one of the most used applications in Terra, but also like in the whole Cosmos space. And there is something that happened to Mirror, which is something a bit interesting. So in Mirror, there was an exploit for about $90 million. Unfortunately, this is not a huge number for sort of like DeFi, like we've seen much bigger exploits. But the craziest thing here is that this exploit happened multiple times, and we didn't know about this as a community for 7 months, right? So there was like an exploiter taking advantage of a bug and everything in the code, and he did it multiple times over 7 months. So like, yeah, this is kind of like the state of the in Cosmos security. So I guess like my point here is that everyone, I think here agrees with this statement that security is important. My argument here is that security is even more important than that. Like it's probably like the most important unsolved problem that we have in crypto. It doesn't really matter like if you do the hard things well. It's hard enough to get mainstream adoption or get product market fit with your applications. But if you don't get security right, you have really the risk of losing everything. So there is one specific application that did all these hard things, which is Axie Infinity. Probably Axie is the application that crossed the chasm. Was more like close to the mainstream, was super used in Philippines, and in one go, like they lost the trust of the whole community. They suffered in the running bridge, which was one bridge between Ethereum and their sidechain, the running sidechain, one of the biggest hacks in the history of crypto. So this was $624 million, a huge amount. And with these amounts, it's always hard to kind of understand them, the big they are. So just wanted to kind of compare this with the average bank robbery in the US, like a bank branch. Does anybody have a guess of how much do robbers get from robbers in a bank branch normally? So it's much less than that. Like the average is 7,500. If you compare this with the amount that was robbed in the running bridge, like this is 88,000 times more. So it's just like a crazy, much more orders of magnitude. If you are like a criminal organization and you are doing like bank robberies in bank branches, you will need to still rob a bank with arms and everything every day for 220 years to get the same amount of money that like a criminal organization got with just one transaction, like in this exploit. And another crazy fact here is that the Axie team didn't know about this fact until 6 days later. So like imagine that you're a bank and that you have more than $500 million less in your accounts, and you don't even realize about it for 6 days. Which is crazy, if you ask me. And I guess like the question here is how we are doing in the Cosmos ecosystem. The reality is that in Cosmos, we haven't had any of these very huge hacks. We have had some incidents, like the Mirror one that we discussed before, Osmosis and others, but we definitely had some scary moments, some very risky moments. There are some reasons that explain that in Cosmos there hasn't been like such a huge hack. There are two good ones and two less good ones. I guess the good ones is that there is a very strong engineering culture and very strong engineering teams in Cosmos. Much better, I would say, in average than in other ecosystems. There is also a very collaborative white hat community, and we are going to talk about more later. And there is two other which are less good. One is that in average we have gotten less TPLs and less economic activity compared to in Ethereum. And at the end of the day, attackers are rational actors, so like the bigger the pot, the more incentives they have to exploit these systems. And then the other, which you guys as developers probably know, like, there is definitely like a technical barrier. So like there is less bad actors that know Cosmos SDK and CosmWasm, so there is less people that can actually exploit the systems. But the reality is that we really had some existential moments, and here I would like to also give a shout out to like, the dev from Osmosis and others like security researchers that saved the Cosmos. This was like the Dragonberry advisory happened really just after like the BNB breach hack, and this is kind of like a counterexample to what I mentioned before. The BNB breach hack. And Binance doesn't announce this a lot, but like they use a lot of the Cosmos tech. And the part that was exploited was actually like a deprecated library from IPC and Cosmos. So like this could have happened to us. We were very lucky that like this white hat group patched in time like this vulnerability. But the reality is that this would have been like an existential risk. And if this would have been exploited, it's very likely that we wouldn't be here. Binance breach was exploited for more than $300 million. Like here, a lot of IBC connected chains would have been at risk of losing a lot of their funds, right? So yeah, this is where we are, right? Like we are this is the state of crypto security. There's been around $3.7 billion lost in 2022. Some of them have been recovered, some of them not. But yeah, we are really talking about really crazy numbers, as I mentioned before. To give another example, another analogy, like we are in Germany, like this amount of money, I think is like about 7% of their military annual defense budget. I'm from Spain, so this is like I think almost 20% of our annual military defense budget. So I would say that the stakes here are pretty high. And the reality is that as well, in front of us, especially for large TVLs, like we have national state supported groups. So like the stakes of these games, they're definitely really hard. So that's why I really think that as a community, we need to step up. We need to rethink how we think about security of our applications. We always talk about like the future of the finance is going to be in here, but then we need to act accordingly, right? And we really need to define and design like an end-to-end security strategy for this purpose. So we've done this work, and we see like the security life cycle in these 5 steps. So first, design; second, develop; review; then upgrade and deploy; and then 5, maintain. I would argue that in Cosmos and CosmWasm, we are fairly good with 2 and 3. We are okay as well at 1, and I think we need a lot to improve at 4 and 5. So yeah, the first one, robust protocol design. So basically, like document, have like specifications, and also like design your systems with security in mind. That means defining your invariants. That means defining your assumptions. That means defining your threat model. And this is an exercise that you need to do before starting to write a line of code, which comes here, right? Like when you have like these specifications, these documentations, and this threat model, so when you start to code, and your goal is to adhere to this specification. Your goal is to also follow best practices, avoid like anti-patterns, and really follow best practices that are both for CosmWasm and Cosmos SDK, but also like general like software engineering ones, and then test. And I guess we should test not just to get the medal of code coverage. Like it's great to have a big number, but like we really need to test like with an attacker mindset in mind and really go for the edge cases. Then the one that is kind of in the middle and the one that gives the most importance is the review part. So here is the moment that you should stand your test. If you can like add like add fuzzing tests, static analysis tools, and so on. Bonus as well if you do formal verification as help to the formal team as well to have developed Quint that makes this much easier. And then comes the moment of the audit. And I think that we don't prepare audits enough. This is overlooked. I think the audit is a moment where we engage with experts in security, and we need to make two things to make the time slot that we have to make it as useful as possible. First, we need to make as easy as possible for them to understand our protocol, so they really spend their time looking for bugs and not just trying to wrap their head around what we did. And then the second one is let's do internal reviews before. Let's remove the low-hanging fruits and remove like the upper layer of fat in our protocols, and let's make them work very hard. Because at the end of the day they have like a time slot, and if they have like all these low-hanging fruits and small things, they're going to really spend their time on the things that we don't want them to spend, because we, as I think, could have uncovered this before. Then it comes the big moment, the moment that you deploy your protocol in testnet and mainnet, and also when you upgrade your protocol. This is really like a very, very critical moment, so you really need to test as much as possible, and also really extensively review your parameters. Like we should give deploys and upgrades the importance they have. These are one of the most important moments of your protocol, and even the best teams, the best engineering teams have mistakes here because of not really putting too much attention or having just small logic flows in their upgrades, and just putting the wrong parameter that can lead for very big exploits. So yeah, let's give it like the importance it has, and here it's especially important in CosmWasm. So there is one thing which I'm not sure yet if this is a feature or a bug. CosmWasm has made upgrades much better than BVM. Like in Solidity, we had to do like some very crazy complex designs, use proxies. CosmWasm has made this super easy. You just upload a new code to the chain, and you just call this upgrade function, and you just swap the code. This has made it so easy that what we are seeing in the wild is that people are upgrading their contracts a lot, like almost as if they would upgrade or deploy it in a web to backend. And I would ask, like for every CosmWasm developer to, maybe like having like pure immutable code is very hard, especially at the beginning, but we should at least aspire to have as immutable code as possible and give upgrades the importance they have only when there is like a strictly like security events, or when we have like a big upgrade, but let's not do upgrades every week because it's very easy to mess them up. And then we have like the 5th step, which is the maintain phase. Hopefully like this is where your protocol is going to be 90% of your time. This really happens between the first deployment to the first upgrade, and then from the first upgrade to the second upgrade. So all the time in between is what we call the maintain mode. And here what you really need to do is like monitor the effects of your protocol, monitor anomalies, issues, and then also prevent hacks, detect hacks, and if an incident happens, like be ready to react in time, and not as the counter examples that we saw like at the beginning of this talk. So here we have different elements. We have like the capabilities that we need to develop in terms of monitoring, threat prevention and detection, and then as well incident response. So this can be, for example, setting up like a bug bounty program in your protocol. I would say that this is still fairly overlooked in the Cosmos ecosystem. and it's already a standard in Ethereum. I think the main reason here is that we are much earlier, and there are less protocols that have been live for like a long time. In Ethereum, we have protocols like MakerDAO that have been live for years already, and they've been really a long time of their in maintain mode. So they give this in this phase like the importance it really has. So the reality is that this is so important that we are able to detect issues in real time because like you really want to minimize the damage. What we've seen in the past is that if you have like a very bad issue in your code, like there's a risk that all your TBL can go poof, right? And this is something crazy, like because with code, there is always gonna be yet another code flow that is very hard, especially with very complex programs that we run. So at least when this happens, let's minimize the bad day. You're gonna have a bad day, but it's not gonna be existential to your protocol. Reality is that 60% of hacks in crypto are non-atomic. That means that they happen in more than one transaction, so you really have time to detect them and minimize the exploits. Everyone talks a lot about flash loans, but the reality is that more than 60% of attacks in crypto are non-atomic. So that's how we see like the future of security in crypto and the future of threat prevention. So it's a combination of security monitoring, but also including on-chain mitigative mechanisms. And these are, for example, automated circuit breakers, rate limits, and then transaction delays in terms of settlement as well. Some examples here is in terms of circuit breakers. So circuit breakers is mechanisms that gives you post functionality in smart contracts that can get triggered automatically or not when certain conditions occur. You should go check out like the new circuit module that the Cosmos SDK has been recently, and yeah, like robust monitoring solutions are a prerequisite for it. There's still key questions how to implement this properly, like what do you pause if you pause certain addresses or certain functionality, and who can trigger the pause as well. But I think these are going to be very important mechanisms in the future. Then we have as well rate limits. So rate limits is the ability to pause or throttle certain functionality based on the volume that goes, for example, in IBC, like on the volume of calls and usage of certain functions or in a given protocol or feature. Like there is a CosmWasm implementation for IBC rate limits made by Osmosis, and also like a Cosmos SDK native one made by Stripe. This is still nascent, but they're critical to minimize the funds lost in exploit and can be implemented both at the smart contract level but also in IBC. So you could also implement this if you are building like a lending protocol where you can minimize the amount of funds that can move from a certain vault in like a given amount of time. So yeah, that's what we are doing at Range. Our mission is really to secure crypto applications. We are building security tooling and security infrastructure and integrating off-chain monitoring solutions with these on-chain mitigation techniques that we discussed now. We are really focusing a lot on building security mechanisms and security applications around IBC and exploring as well how to integrate like these rate limits and circuit breakers. So yeah, like that's us. Please like join us at range.org, and also like if you are interested like in security, especially like in crypto security, I'm Monty in Twitter, and also like do reach out during the conference. And if you are not interested in security, you should definitely reach out, because then we should definitely have a discussion. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. And yeah, let me know. I'm going to be in the conference, so yeah, really happy to catch up and discuss everything security related. Thank you.